Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Z, and in today's video, I'm going to share some tips and information that's essential for good mental health. Firstly, if you're someone who's struggling with their mental health, you're not alone. In the US, 1 in 5 people have some form of mental illness. That becomes 1 in 3 between the age group of 18 and 25. So this is a huge thing, and you're far from alone. A lot of this comes down to the fact that many of us were not taught how to properly use our mind. We have this really cool creative ability called imagination, right? That's this ability to create images, visions, and possibilities and scenarios in our mind. It's a really, really cool creative ability, but we're programmed to use it in a way that keeps us scared. I remember when I was in grade school, whenever a class would get too boring, I would just use my imagination. At that age, I was using my imagination a lot to create cool things, daydream, happy things. And then slowly, as I got introduced to Halloween, getting scared, watching horror movies, and got introduced to the concept of what if, but what if that doesn't work out? What if you fail? What if you get hurt? What if? Over time, my imagination started leaning towards creating fearful scenarios, situations that I don't want to have happen. And the thing I didn't realize at the time is that the more we place our focus and attention on these fearful thoughts, on these fearful scenarios, the more they grow. And one fearful thought leads to another fearful thought. It could start to pick up this momentum, right? This intensity of fear, this speed of our thoughts. They can all start to build up until we start spiraling. And we can literally become lost in thought. I've had talks with people going into that spiral and feeling paralyzed. So we know that this is not a way to use our mind that serves us. So how can we change this? We replace fear with awareness. Being aware of something is removing the judgment of it. So for example, when we're afraid of something, there's judgment, like, oh, this is bad. This better not happen. If this happened, my life is gonna be ruined. What am I gonna do if this happens? Even just role-playing that mental headspace, you can feel like my anxiety and the tension and the franticness in my voice kind of go up. And it's not the best space to be making decisions. The more we think about it from a place of fear, it clouds our judgment. We can't make sound decisions when we're afraid, when we're fearful, when we're worrying. Worrying is a subtle form of panic. It's a precursor to panic. And we know that panic doesn't help in any situation. I can't think of a single situation in which panic would be helpful. Maybe in a panic contest, who can panic the hardest? But other than that silly ass example, panic doesn't help. Worry doesn't help. What does help is relaxing the tension that comes with fear. Pause, take a step back, and just start taking deep breaths. Inhale into the part that feels tense. And exhale to release all that tension. You keep doing this until you feel calm, until you feel safe, until you feel relaxed. Another thing that helps is replacing fear with trust. There's going to be certain things that's within our control, and there's going to be certain things that's outside of our control. Whatever happens, trust that you'll figure it out like you always have. You've gone this far, there's no reason to believe you won't keep going. Trust in the process. Do you feel that? It's more of a centered, calm, and collected way of navigating a possibility. One really important part of mental health that I feel doesn't get enough attention is knowing when to stop thinking, and more specifically, even how to stop thinking. Because our mind is like a muscle. If we continuously use it to think, it becomes easier to think. And we're just constantly in thought. It creates this momentum of thought that leads us from one thought to another thought to another thought, and it could be very mentally exhausting. It's not uncommon for people to go about their day-to-day extremely tired, very low energy, and their diet is on point. They're getting enough sun, they're getting enough exercise, and yet they're still so mentally drained. And it's because they're constantly thinking. Thinking is a great ability that we have, especially critical thinking. But there's a time to think, and there's a time to just settle all the thoughts and just feel and just experience. Just take in a moment without having to think about the moment. Thinking can be so exhausting if we do it all the time. And if you want to look at a healthy, natural state of being, I'm always going to reference back to children. Before any conditioning or programming happens, they're not really thinking. They're just going about their day, doing their thing. They might not even have an inner monologue yet because they don't even know a language. They haven't been equipped with a language to talk to themselves. And all they're doing is feeling. They're feeling throughout the world. They're just experiencing the world. And that's beautiful. But we get conditioned to think. A kid does something that ends up hurting someone else. And we'll ask them, what were you thinking? Why'd you do that? And they kind of get confused. To them, there is no why. To them, it's just, I felt like doing that. No thought to it. We see it as a negative thing. You should have given it some more thought. And that's coming from a good place. It's good to be able to think. But there's a balance. There's such thing as overthinking and underfeeling. We don't have to be thinking in every single moment. It's very mentally draining. And the easiest way to stop thinking is to get into our body, out of our minds and into our body. We can do that through deep breathing, focusing on our breath. It's a very subtle thing that you can do in any situation, whether you're in a meeting, in the bathroom, social setting, doesn't matter. We can always focus on our breath. Now, if that's a little too subtle for you and you need something a bit stronger to get you out of your mind and into your body, you can try something physical, going for a walk. You can try something even more intense, working out, going for a jog, yoga. My personal favorite is dancing, putting on some good music, setting the intention of letting go of my thoughts, and I'm just going to dance my ass off and have a good time. So those are some ways that you can practice getting out of your mind and into your body, letting go of thoughts in general. Now, the second pillar that's essential for good mental health is healing the relationship we have with ourselves. Our relationship with ourselves is the foundation for all our other relationships. It's common for people to try to fix all their other interpersonal relationships and then completely miss the real work, which is their relationship with themselves. So I'll give you an example. For a long time, my relationship with myself is very critical, right? I never felt like I was enough in my own eyes. I always had to be doing more, doing better. Even just casual social encounters, my inner monologue, the thoughts in my head would sound like, don't be weird, am I likable? It was just coming from a very insecure place, and I ended up looking for a lot of external validation. Here's another example, and this one is not about me. Someone who sees themselves in a negative light and treat themselves poorly, they're more prone to letting other people treat them the same way, especially if their personal sense of self-worth is very low. And again, you see how our relationship with ourselves plays such a big role in determining the relationships we have with other people. We start to realize just how important it is to heal our relationship with ourselves first. Now, how do we do this? Well, first and foremost, recognize what your relationship with yourself even is. And it's pretty simple to figure this one out. Listen to your inner monologue. How do you speak to yourself? Oh my God, how did you screw up again? Come on. You said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. What is your problem, man? Get your shit together. That's me role-playing a potential inner monologue someone has with themselves. By becoming more aware of how you talk to yourself and how you treat yourself, you're going to start seeing where your relationship with yourself is currently at. The other part to healing this is realizing where this comes from. Most of the time, our inner relationship comes from how we were treated during our childhood. Then we internalize these experiences and they become the basis of our relationship with ourselves. If our parents constantly make us feel like we're not enough, then that's going to be how we talk to ourselves. That's going to be how we feel about ourselves. You're not enough. Very common in the Asian community. There's always a cousin or somebody that's better than you that they're going to compare you to. So it's very prevalent in the Asian community, this sense of oh, I'm not enough. I better step my game up. And this is not to place blame on the parents or whatever, because chances are they had to go through the same thing. We're just at a stage in our collective development and evolution that we can become aware of this and heal. The next crucial step when it comes to developing a healthier relationship with yourself is to give some thought and create the relationship you'd like to have with yourself. For me, it's loving, playful, generous, supportive, but also no bullshit. I have a tendency to bullshit myself. And if I do that and I lie to myself, I'm kind of screwed. So in my own inner relationship, I aim to be supportive and kind, but also real with myself. Be very clear of the kind of relationship you'd like to have with yourself and start developing towards that. If you have an overly critical inner voice like I used to, try communicating with it, right? If your inner voice is like, why are you such a piece of shit? Why can't you be like this person? Why didn't you do this and that? Why? Right? Just like pause it and talk to it. Like you can say, this isn't helping. We're not gonna get anywhere fighting ourselves. And you just keep communicating with it to develop and heal this relationship. Like any relationship, communication is key. Over time, this inner critic could transform into an inner supporter or an inner guide. And like, how awesome is that? To have a part of yourself that's there for you 24/7. You'll never feel alone in that space. And in key moments where you might feel, emotional distress or just going through something really intense, you can start to self-soothe. Like, hey, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna allow ourselves to feel everything and take it one moment at a time. We're going to get through this together. That's what self-soothing sounds like when we have a healthy relationship with ourselves. The next thing I'm going to talk about that's essential for good mental health is learning how to regulate and process our emotions. This is such an essential part of being human. Doesn't matter what stage of your career is, what age you are, what your ethnic background is, what your culture is, it doesn't matter. This affects every human being because this is the human experience. Our thoughts, our emotions, everyone experiences these things. And the sad part about regulating emotions is that many of us are taught to suppress our emotions, especially men. We're taught to not be emotional, particularly not to be sad, and definitely don't cry. And I'm going to invite you to see our emotions as a very important form of communication. It's communicating to us something. This hurts me. That's not okay. I am not okay with this. Our emotions are always trying to tell us something. And if we suppress it, we never get the message. Our emotions are always trying to tell us something. But are you aware enough to listen to the message? That's what it comes down to. It's important that we develop this listening skill, this ability to listen to ourselves. Like, what am I feeling right now? It could be sadness, it could be joy, it could be anger, it could be frustration. Frustration is a very common one. And once we've identified what emotions we're feeling, we acknowledge it. We give it the space to come up, to be seen. Like, oh, I'm sad because I'm hurt. Oh, I'm angry because I'm hurt. Many times our emotion points back to the fact that we're hurt. I met someone at a healing center and he could not cry. We had a conversation and I started sharing some, personal struggles of mine, and I started tearing up. I immediately apologized. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to let all that come out just now. He told me that, hey, it's okay. Actually, I think it's beautiful that you can cry like this because I can't cry. And he shared with me that when he was a kid, he saw his mom and his dad argue, like a really intense yelling type of argument. I don't know if it got physical. I don't remember that detail, but I just remember it was very intense for him. Him being a kid, he did what naturally came up, which was to cry. And I'm using this word very intentionally. His natural reaction is to cry. When his mom saw him crying, she went up to him, slapped him across the face, and said, "You better stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." And since then, he wasn't able to cry for most of his adult life. It wasn't until later into his treatment at the healing center that he was finally able to let go and cry, and you can just see all this weight lifted off of him. Our emotions is an internal phenomenon. It's something that happens within us. It's important that we express it so that it doesn't fester. It's so common to avoid it, suppress it, numb it with substance, but it doesn't go anywhere. You can distract yourself momentarily, but it will always come up. Typically, it comes up when we're sleeping, when we can't run anymore. It's just us and our feelings and our thoughts, and it can be a lot. It can be very, very overwhelming. That's why it's so important to find a healthy outlet to express it. If someone who has anger problems express it only through breaking stuff in the house, or only through hurting themselves, or only through hurting other people, that's not exactly healthy. There's a healthier way to express our emotions. I'll give you some personal examples. For me, I'll fill up a bucket full of water, and then I'll dunk my head in, and I'll scream. I'll scream out my frustration. I let it all out of me without hurting myself or anybody around me or destroying anything. Imagine my head is just in the water for like, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds, just like, and saying all this crazy shit. And then I lift my head out of the water. Like that's a cathartic feeling. I just feel cleansed. Everything feels like, okay, it's out of me. Whew. You know, it's very cleansing, and it feels like I just hit the reset button and I feel revitalized. That's one way that I do it. You know, there's so many different ways to express our emotions. And again, another one of my favorites is, of course, dancing. Dance out your anger, dance out your frustration, dance out your sadness. Dance like no one's watching. Just so many great ways to express our emotions so that it doesn't fester inside of us. And lastly, once we've expressed that emotion, the last and final step is to let it go. You know, you don't want to hold on to that anger. You just put in all this work to get it out of you. We received the message. We gave it the space to be expressed, and now it's time to let it go. You know, if we hold on to anger, we hold on to frustration, it's not healthy for us. We can become chronically angry. We can become chronically frustrated. You know, sometimes I'm driving and I see someone who just has that vibe about them. They're just like rushing everywhere, frustrated, angry at the world. And once I recognize that, I'm staying as far away from that person as possible. That's what happens when someone doesn't let it go. They feel this frustration, but they project it outward. When the key to having them be at peace and be at ease again is to look within. Look within yourself. Shit, why am I frustrated? What hurt me? Okay, how can I fix this? How can I heal this? How can I finally let it go? So this is why it's so important to do this type of inner work, right? To heal ourselves from within. I made the mistake of looking to heal the world, right? Like, I see so many things wrong with the world, and I'm trying my best to fix everything. But really, it doesn't work like that. I can't heal the world without first healing myself. It's like a broken person trying their best to fix a broken world. It doesn't work like that. I don't even know if fix is the right word here, so I'm just gonna say heal. We gotta heal ourselves first. So now we're this whole and complete person who can do a much better job healing the world. And this is why I created this video. I've gone through a lot, and it was tough. A lot of suffering, a lot of confusion, a lot of personal anger towards myself. It was a rough journey. I'm not gonna say it's easy to do this type of inner work, but it's so worth it. On the other side of doing this type of work is peace, is joy, is finally seeing who we are. Through all the insecurities, through all the sadness, through all the trauma, we get to finally see who we really are. And that's priceless. I didn't know who I was for a long time. Coming into this world, I knew exactly who I was. Then through all the trauma, through all the bullshit, through all the programming, conditioning, I forgot. But now I know who I am, and I'm here to share the news. You're worth it. You're worth getting to know. There's no better gift, prize, reward than getting to know yourself, who you truly are. Beyond your job title, your performance, your age, and even your name, because that's just a sound. That's not who you are. I'm talking about the true essence of who you are. That is so worth discovering. There's so much more I can talk about when it comes to doing this type of inner work, so I'll probably make a part 2. If you'd like some one-on-one time together to work through your inner struggles and improve your mental health, use the link below to book a free consultation with me. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, please give it a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.